Sonic Superstars speedrunners have already broken everything. From the early days after release, runners were able to find boss skips, exploits, and even wrong wars to the end of the game. But what does any of this actually mean for the speedrun? So far, one of the most impactful finds is just how many boss skips there are in Superstars. Huge shout out to both MTP and Zaxxon, who together have found most of the skips and strats we will go over today. Bosses are in nearly every mandatory act of the game, so being able to skip any of them at all is a huge discovery. Out of the many bosses in the game, every single boss can be skipped in one way or another. These skips were being found so fast that during the scripting of this video, I had to update that statistic 3 different times. Since most stages end with a capsule after you beat the boss, you don't actually have to beat the boss to progress. Meaning if you can make it to that capsule, you can skip the fight entirely, so speedrunners got to work on finding a way to do just that. But clipping out of bounds can't be that easy, right? Well, let's not forget, this is a Sonic game. While all bosses can be skipped by one character or another, the question is if all of them can, and how that will change speedruns. Before we get into this next session, spoilers ahead. The new character Trip is the one character that can skip every boss because of one key mechanic. Trip's super form sees her transform into a dragon, and this transformation is what allows many of these skips. In combination with Trip's natural ability, which is being able to cling to walls and traverse across them, this transformation can break nearly any boundary. By jamming Trip into a ceiling corner, when you transform into her super form, she can clip out of bounds. Fortunately, there are plenty of opportunities to find collisions like this right next to boss arenas or not too far away. By carefully navigating out of bounds with her super form, you can skirt the boss arena and never actually trigger the fight. Bosses are some of the longest parts of a Superstars playthrough, as they have a lot of downtime and auto-scrolling sections. One of these skips can easily save minutes at a time. Trip is able to skip every boss with the combined efforts of MTP and Zaxxon. However, Trip isn't playable until after you beat the main game. So if people want to do main story speedruns, they might not be able to skip every boss, right? Well, a lot of runners have already said they want to run Trip story for this reason, or a New Game Plus version of the main story with Trip, and all of the emeralds already unlocked. It would be the best of both worlds potentially. But the question remains, can other characters skip bosses too? Real quick, did you know that 98% of my viewers actually aren't subscribed? Since I put a lot of effort into these videos, it would mean a lot if you would consider subscribing. While other characters' super forms don't let them go out of bounds, this game is plenty easy to break anyway. One skip found early on was incredibly impactful and required Knuckles to pull it off. Found by MTP, if you trigger the descending autoscroller right before the end of the stage, then grab onto this wall here, some weird stuff happens. Knuckles stays in place, but the camera will still lower with the stage collision. At this point, you can activate the bullet emerald power and use it to go out of bounds, since the game isn't trying to hold you in that area anymore. We later found that you don't need to be Knuckles to make this work, but it probably makes it easier to pull off. But at this point is where the skip gets even weirder. For some reason, it was found that there's actually a capsule in this stage that ends the act. This is weird because this is the one case where you actually have to defeat the boss as the condition to end the stage. Maybe they originally planned on having the player hit the capsule after you beat the boss, but decided they wanted the end to be more climactic. While this does technically end the stage and skips one of the longest bosses in the game, it also tends to crash the game. Kinda sad not to get credits, but hey, that's one way to end a run. Another cool boss skip is done with Tails, and also found by MTP. This skip actually involves entering the fight and skipping it during the actual fight itself. Tails can practically ignore Eggman here, as he can fly up much higher than Eggman even in his mech. If you progress the fight to the point where Eggman flings the rocks high into the air, instead of taking the chance to hit him, you can fly up as high as possible with Tails, and if you pull it off properly, you will clip out of the fight entirely. After this, you can fall and land directly on the capsule that you're supposed to get only after defeating Eggman. A lot of other boss skips are made possible by random strats like using the bullet emerald power to get around entrances and rooms. Like the Sky Temple boss skip is also possible for any character using the bullet ability. Luckily, a lot of these areas don't have super restraining collisions and didn't really expect the player to think to use the abilities like this. One of my personal favorite boss skips is made possible by the boss itself. You see Speed Jungle's boss use these claw attacks, and quite often they retract quickly off the screen. User Springpath from the classic Sonic speedrun server found that if you get hit, then land on the claw, you can get a crazy amount of speed if done properly. If sent in the correct direction, you can completely skip the door that blocks you into this boss arena and skip the entire fight. This one has proven very difficult to replicate, since at this time there doesn't seem to be a completely consistent setup. However, since this version of the skip was found, MTP has found another variant. This variant involves using the bullet ability to hit the ceiling collision just right and clip out. This is possible right outside the boss arena, and while still difficult, it is much more consistent. While these skips are huge, there are plenty of other exploits, routes, and other types of skips possible that save a huge amount of time in this game. One very simple find is that you can become supersonic and not lose rings at all. How to activate this exploit is done by cancelling the animation to activate supersonic in the middle of it channeling. This is done by pressing the bumpers right after starting to transform, but it is a tight window so it might take a few tries. Because of this, the startup of Supersonic is never able to finish, and it can't start to decrease your rings, but it doesn't cancel the transformation itself. And every playable character can do this as well, making this a very impactful find. Sky Temple is an incredibly vertical stage. The bullet ability loves this, as if you can find a way around the collision blocking you in, you could essentially skip the entire thing. Speedrunners found that if you use the bullet ability right at the start of the stage, you can instantly clip out of bounds and travel straight up, skipping a huge amount of platforming you usually need to do. This ability lasts a long time as well, so you can nearly reach the final area of the stage from just one use. During the zero gravity sections of Egg Fortress, there is a possibility to teleport for some reason. By hitting this very specific part of the stage's collision, Sonic will teleport far away, skipping a massive chunk of the stage. Why does this work? I have no clue, and I don't think the devs do either. Another interesting exploit is that you can skip the Emerald Power tutorials, and this was also found by MTP. Getting the first 2 Emerald Powers is basically mandatory, but it takes a while to complete when you look at both the results screen and the actual tutorial itself. It was discovered that you could restart and unpause when you are just about to hit the emerald, and you will grab it and restart the stage. Since you can get the first 2 emeralds really early into the stage, this actually saves a bit of time to do, and you get to start from a fresh slate and play the stage like normal. The first day of release for Superstars saw some big finds like some of the stuff I've mentioned in this video, but there was one accidental discovery that has the most potential out of anything I've discussed. You can wrong warp to the last zone of the game, and it's so easy many people have done it by accident.
How'd I end up here? Isn't this the end?
To activate the wrong warp, you need to play up to Pinball Carnival Act 1 and beat that stage. When prompted, choose and beat the Fruit Special stage. At this time, the game will kick you to the world map and ask if you want to go to the shop. If you choose yes, upon exiting the shop, the wrong warp will activate. The potential implications of this are massive, as you could skip to the very end of the game with ease in the speedrun. Like I mentioned though, there is only potential here because of one main issue. The stages don't actually let you play them. For now, this glitch is actually completely useless, but that doesn't mean it will always be that way. If we could somehow find a way to activate these stages, the any % speedrun would be insanely quick, as you would only need to play a handful of stages, then perform the wrong warp. The possibilities are endless with Sonic Superstars, but only time will tell if any of this potential comes to light. Sonic Superstars just released in the last couple weeks at the recording of this video, and we have already made so much progress. The world record for main story is already down to under an hour, and I'm so excited to see how this will progress. Only time will tell how much more broken this game will get. See you next time, and thanks for watching.